grateful to have you all this morning. Today's practice, as I promised, is a yin practice. So, you know how I like to talk to you a little bit before class and set a theme. Today's theme, is about patience. Yeah, it came up. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about patience, and the whole practice is geared towards patience. And it's really appropriate for a yin practice to start to cultivate patience. I do want to get into some thoughts about patience, but ever since I was a little girl, and if you're one of my students, you do hear me say yoga is about this. Oh, and today yoga is about this. Yoga is about everything, but mostly I remember, or if I recall, and it wasn't that long ago, but my teachers would say that yoga is about patience, Lizzie. So the common denominator of yoga is one of the common denominators in yoga is trying to find what we call patience. But let's talk about thoughts about patience, because what we perceive to be patience might not really be the full extent of what the experience of patience wants to bring to the table for us. So I'm just going to read a little bit. Patience isn't waiting or being static, but moving in harmony with the speed of nature and what life is presenting to you. The Buddha taught that patience is sitting in the present moment with dukkha. And so for those of you who don't know that word, dukkha means suffering. And look, there's all levels of suffering. If you're being, and I don't want to get gory this morning, but if you're being physically tortured, that's suffering. It's a physical pain. But there's also mental suffering. There's all different levels of suffering, and each of them are valid. Most of us have some sort of dukkha in our life, right? So I'll say that again. The Buddha taught that patience is sitting in the present moment with dukkha, or our hardships, without expectation, fighting, or ignoring. We can't be patient by hiding our impatience, or trying to be patient, or wanting patience. It's a state that naturally arises from within. We simply give up on our internal deadline about how fast things should happen and give way to the unfolding of life. It is letting go of the expectations of how you want things to be, if it can't be that way. It's having trust in the moment and in the process. It's truly having trust in the process without any expectation of what is going to be the end result. And that's hard for us. It's difficult because we want things the way we want them at that moment. And then we kind of are in our own way, aren't we? Yin is a practice of patience. And I think all yoga is a practice of patience if we're doing the yoga and we're not perceiving it to be some Instagrammable image of a physical pose in our mind. Which, you know me, I love physical practice, but I also want you to understand what the yoga is trying to teach you, not just the asana. So yin is a practice of patience, right? Patient nature understands the journey of how things come into being. You cannot rush the seed into the finished product. The seasons come when they are ready. Day and night have their own unique rhythm. This is the flow of life. Discover patience, yogis. I invite you explore what you think patience is. It's not like you have your kids and you're like, I'm trying to be patient, Bobby. You're not trying. That word is being used out of context. And so, cultivating patience is a gem. It's letting things unfold without pushing, forcing, trying. And I think also explore, yogis, explore the word trust. Trust that thing. Everything happens when it's ready to happen, not when we want it. And everything takes time to evolve and grow. Beautiful things happen when we allow things to happen, right? And that's also, that's also a key word today is allow. What are we allowing in our space? What are we allowing in our present? What are we allowing? What are we trusting? And what does patience mean for you? So that's really the context of the theme today. But I also want you to, think about it during your day. What makes you impatient? And if I start to take apart that word, it's like, what makes me impatient is because something's not happening now at this moment the way I want it. I'm impatient with my practice because I can't get my foot over my head. I'm impatient with myself because I procrastinate. I'm impatient with myself because yada, 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 yada. I'm impatient with someone else because they're not showing up or doing what they have to do. Well, I'm impatient with, and most of the time, if we keep on going with that thread of thought, you're impatient with the thing because the thing, you feel like you're not valid. It's like you're not being heard. You're not being seen. I see you. And you need to be able to see yourself. So those 3 things today, think about. And in your practice, I want you to start to cultivate patience. When we're in the poses, I want you to be in the pose. And I want you to start to notice sensation and be in this present moment. This is the most beautiful moment that we have. It's the only moment that we have. So that being said, yogis, I'm going to lose my bolster. Yogis, if you need props, please run and get them. Bolsters, blankets, whatever you need. Grab them. Now, this is a yin practice. This is not a restorative practice. So we are going to feel activity happening in the body. You will feel sensation, and I will try to guide you into these sensations. Remember, yin is about finding a shape and then finding an appropriate depth for you. What is the shape that I'm asking you to get into, and how does your body respond to that? And then we start to notice these sensations. I am asking you not to contract your muscles like in a yang practice. This is a yin practice, so I'm working my fascial network, my connective tissue, my ligaments, and I'm also getting into my bone structure. We're going to be in these poses for a longer period of time than you might want. So I do want you to cultivate patience because you're not able to get out of a pose when you want to. But again, if you need to get out because if there's some pain sensation, of course you're doing that. I do need you to start to think about your breath and invite your breath in with you to also cultivate that patience. Yogis, I want you to be in the present moment. And I want you to cultivate everything good about you. Everything. And that being said, let's find our sits bones. And find a seat, yogis, that's comfortable for you. Lifting up from the pelvic floor and squeezing the belly towards the midline. creating space in between the vertebrae. So I'm rooting to rise from my sits bones up through the crown of my head, but there's no tension in my shoulders. My chest is going up towards my chin, and my chin is going towards my chest as I press the back of the head gently back towards an imaginary wall. I feel supported. I feel lifted. I feel spacious. Notice your breath, yogis, and arrive in this moment. Notice and cultivate the in-breath through the nose and the out-breath through the nose. We'll be using this breath pattern through the rest of your practice. And for a little pranayama practice, on the inhales, yogis, I want you to feel the prana going towards the base of your pelvis. And on the exhale, I want you to lift that prana up to your heart center. Inhale to the base of the pelvis. Exhale towards the heart center. Inhale, base of the pelvis. Exhale, heart center. Breathe normally, yogis. Yogis, place your hands at your heart center if it calls you. And set an intention for your practice, for your day, for someone you love, someone that needs it, for the world, anything that you need. And gently open your eyes, yogis. And let's begin our practice. So gently just start to roll your shoulders up and back. We're just going to find a little bit of dynamic movement before we go into the practice. So if you haven't moved this morning a lot, just gently start to find some ranges of motion in the shoulders and the wrists. Maybe opening up your arms and feeling some opening in the chest. Good. Take your right hand behind you, left hand on your right knee, and just gently twist to the right. Coming back towards the midline, yogis. And let's take the right hand to the left knee and gently twist. And then release that, yogis. Take a moment. If your legs were crossed, shake them out. Do what you have to do. Maybe a little bit of windshield wipers. Whatever it takes, yeah? Gentle movements. Yogis, we're going to start with child's pose. If child's pose doesn't serve you, of course, you can come onto your spine and bring your knees into your chest. If you need a bolster underneath you, use it. I do want you to get your forehead onto a surface, so if you need a block underneath your forehead, please use it. You could even just use your hands. If you don't have blocks, yogis, get a book. I hope you have some books at home. So, any child's pose you like. And arrive in your position. Arrive in this place. Cultivating that beautiful Ujjayi breath, and inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. Notice the sensation of surrender. Please take 3 more deep breaths here, yogis. Not anticipating, just being in this present moment, waiting for things to unfold. And gently take 1 more breath. And gently come out of the pose, yogis. Your head will be the last thing to come up, and you'll wind up on sitting on your heels just for a moment to rebound. Notice the quality of trusting and just being here in this moment. Please, yogis, find your sits bones. I will face you, but you could still face the front of your mats, yogis. Placing the soles of your feet together, we're going to find butterfly. So soles of the feet together, knees apart. If you need blocks underneath your knees or underneath your thighs, please feel free to grab them. Grab a hold of your feet, yogis. Interlace your fingers for a moment and just let your arms lengthen. So there's nothing happening. There's no pulling. There's just length. And just feel the sensation of the inner thighs. They're not trying to achieve depth. We're just trying to feel sensation. Notice the quality and the lengths of your breaths, your inhales and your exhales. Maybe notice the sensation in your arms, your shoulders, maybe in the inner thighs, the hips. Relax your head as much as you can. Please take 3 more deep breaths. Gently, yogis, lean a little bit forward and then bend your elbows gently and just release the bind. Find some movement in your feet, your toes. Bringing your legs together gently and slowly, yogis. Placing your hands behind you. And maybe do some windshield wipers to release maybe some extra tension that you might have created. Beautiful, yogis. So cross over and come onto all fours for a moment. I'm going to ask you to place your right foot behind your right hand and your left foot behind your left hand. And then just let yourself fold forward, yogis. Please keep your belly on your quads in the beginning. Grab a hold of the pointy parts of your elbows and just let yourself hang.
If you feel that you can find the range of motion by straightening your legs, then do so, yogis. But you always have the option to keep your knees bent. Finding the sensation of traction in the spine and length behind the whole back of the body, working that urinary bladder lines, kidney lines. And taking those beautiful deep breaths and just waiting for things to unfold. Notice the sensation in the backs of the legs, maybe in the neck and the shoulders. If you want to release the elbows, do that. We're going to take 3 more breaths here, yogis. And gently, yogis, find the awareness of this moment. Bend your knees if they're not bent and place your hands on the ground. So feel your hands touching the mat or touching the floor. And then lift your eye gaze for a moment and bring your right knee down towards the mat. And then bring your left knee towards the mat. And just let's do a little counter pose. Just bring the hips to the right and you look to the left. And then bring it back towards the midline. Bring your hips to the left and then you look to the right. And come back towards the midline. Yogis, take a moment. If you need your blocks for the next one, please grab them. We're going to come into low dragon. So I'm going to bring my right foot forward and my hands are going to go inside my right foot. If I do need blocks, yogis, they're going to go on the outside of that foot and just lift up. Yeah. Anything you need, yogis. And also, if you are taking the blocks on the inside, you might want to put your forearms on the blocks. Or if you can, we can place our forearms on the floor. So notice the sensation, yogis. Notice how much patience I'm asking you, right, to cultivate these poses. Become a little bit, progressively, they're becoming a little bit more challenging. And then I want you also to notice the sensations that arise. Notice what are you feeling? What are you thinking about? Take 2 more breaths here, yogis. And then press your hands back into the floor if they're not there yet. Extending the elbows, yogis. And then gently bringing that right knee back down onto the mat. And let's do that counter again. Let's bring the hips to the left and please look to the right. Coming back towards the midline, let's bring the hips to the right and you look to the left. Coming back towards the midline. Good, yogis. If you need your blocks, bring them there. We're going to bring the left foot forward in between, or your foot's going to come in on the, your hands are going to come in the inside of your foot, excuse me. So take a breath. Extending the elbows. If you need to stay here, stay here. If you need blocks underneath your hands, you can frame the foot. If you need blocks underneath your forearms, place them there. Yogis, if you need a little bit more room, you could move that right knee back tiny, but make sure that the knee is on the ground. So come into your low dragon. Noticing sensation, yogis. Cultivating that beautiful breath. You know, noticing one side might be a little different than the other. And that's perfectly normal. Take another deep breath here. And placing your beautiful hands on the ground, extending those elbows. Feeling your hands, palms on the floor, and then scoot back and bring that left knee onto the floor so you're in tabletop again. This time, yogis, for the counter, we're just going to come into a down dog. Find that breath. Feel the sensation of hands and feet into the ground. Lift your sits bones up, feeling straight arms and straight legs. Take one more breath. Lifting your eye gaze, yogis. Bring your right knee in behind your right wrist and your right foot towards the left side of your mat. Extending your left leg back. Your left knee is on the ground, so that's an internal rotation. And let's come into swan. So I'm not going to recline this swan. We're going to stay upright. And so you will feel it in the left hip flexor. Some of us will feel it in the external rotation of the right hip. Either or both is good. If you need a block and you want to sit on it, it goes underneath the right hip, yogis. So cultivate this patience here, because most of you want to recline this pose. You want to just fall forward into it. And I'm asking you to do something completely opposite of what you want to do, right? I want you to keep the chest lifted, maybe relax the head, but the sensation is a little bit more intense when we come into the approach of this pose this way. Take 2 more deep breaths. Tucking the back toes underneath you, yogis. Sliding that right leg back behind you, and then lift your hips back up for that down dog. And then feel the sensation in the lower back, belly, legs. Take 1 deep breath. Lifting your eye gaze, yogis. So move your neck. You're going to find that extension, bringing the left knee forward behind your left wrist, bringing the left foot towards the right side of your mat, any amount. Make sure that the right leg is straight behind you and the right knee is on the ground. So roll it in. That right hip comes in, and just take a moment, lifting the chest. So here we're finding that hip extension on that right leg. Take a couple more breaths here, please, yogis. Finding your stillness in these last 2 breaths in this asana.
Yogis, tuck your right toes underneath you, please. And then sliding that left knee back, coming onto all fours. Take a moment here and just press away from the floor and feel your spine rounding. Let your head drop and look at your belly button. Come back to all fours, placing your forearms on the ground. Scooching yourself a little forward and then extend your legs and lower your hips down. Yogis, finding a Sphinx pose. So again, you can place a bolster underneath your forearms. Please open up your feet the distance of your mat or hip distance. And then pressing away from the ground and just letting yourself feel supported. Relax your glutes and then relax your head. If you want, yogis, you can experiment by placing your elbows into the ground and placing your forehead into your hands. Any variation works. But what I don't want is for you to have tension in your head, or your neck. So the target area is the lower spine. So I do want you to start to relax the glutes a little bit more, relax your legs. And here's another variation. If you want a little bit more, you could bend your knees. Noticing that full belly breath, yogis, as your belly hits the mat, expands into it, and then pulls away on an inhale. Notice everything about yourself right now, yogis. Notice your hands on the mat, your feet on the mat. Notice the relaxation of the glutes. Notice your head relaxing. One more deep breath here, yogis. Gently lower yourself down onto your mat. Forehead will go onto your hands. Elbows go out to the side. Relax your glutes. Yogis, open up your arms like goalposts and look to the right, placing your left ear on the mat. And then slide your right knee up towards your right elbow and come into a nice counter for those two extension poses that we were in.
And then gently lower that leg down. Bring your hands underneath your forehead again, elbows out to the side, and roll your glutes and your hips a little so you can relax your glutes again. Relax the shoulders. Feel that sense of surrender. Open your arms like gold pose. Let your right ear come to the mat. Please look to the left as that left knee slides up to meet the left elbow. And then gently, yogi, sliding that left leg down, bringing your hands underneath your forehead, and surrendering into the mat. Bringing your hands underneath your deltoids, yogis, tucking your toes underneath you. Please press yourself back just to a child's pose for transition. Bringing hands underneath your forehead and finding that flexion in the spine. Just notice sensation. Please get into this carefully. It is a counter. Coming onto all fours, yogis. I'm going to face you, but you could still face the front of your mat. Sit onto your heels. Yes, and take a moment. We're going to sit onto our sits bones, and we're going to come into dragonfly. So extend your legs forward for a moment and shake them out if you need to. Please locate your sits bones and then open out your legs in a V shape. Yes, any amount. Yes, make sure that you're on your sits bones. If you want to lift yourself up and then sit back down, great. Do what you need to do. Just take a moment. Yogis, if you need your bolster or blocks, I'll show you what it looks like. Yes, you could place the bolster in any height that you like and just hinge forward at the hips if you're not tucking the chin in towards the chest. This is a perfect place. Any amount, yes. If you are tucking the chin in towards the chest and you still want to use the bolster, it could look like this. So yogis, find your spot, any amount. If you have any cervical spine issues or lower back issues, you're not tucking the chin into the chest. If you have any of those issues, please just hinge forward at the hip with a nice long spine. You could bend your knees, yogis, as much as you need to. Just get into a shape. Find your breath and explore sensation and patience. Trust the moment, yogis. Gently, yogis, start to come up. Your head will be the last thing to come up. And find this nice long spine. And take a breath. Gently bring your right knee in and your left. Press your hips up for a moment and maybe move them to the right and to the left. And then lower your hips back down. Yogis, I'm going to lie on my spine, moving my stuff away, and I am going to grab a block. You could use any block you like, a book. I'm going to place the block underneath my sacrum. And I'm going to lift my legs. Let my hands create a T formation with the palms facing up. If this is too much for your legs, yogis, come into happy baby without the block. Or if you need to use the wall, place your legs up on the wall. Find your breath. Notice the weightlessness of the legs and the sensations from the toes all the way down to the hip.
Take 2 more breaths here. Then start to bring your fingers in towards the palms and make little fists. And then gently let the right heel gently drop down towards your glute and then the left heel. So both of your knees are bent. Gently lower your right foot down to the ground and your left foot. And notice the sensation of the body. Pressing your feet into the ground, lift your hips up and remove the block. Lower your hips back down. Yogis, find your Shavasana. If you need to keep your knees bent, do so. If you like to extend your legs and your arms, do that. Whatever calls you, yogis. When you get into that final resting position, inhale through your nose. Open your mouth and let go. And do that again. And one more. Rest. Yogis, you can stay in this Shavasana for as long as you need to. But if you are staying, please make sure that you're very mindful when you get up. And do so slowly. If you're waking up with me, yogis, please start to find movement. Any movement, gentle movement. Maybe bringing knees into the chest. Maybe rolling to the right or to the left. But somehow find your seat. Bringing your hands to heart center. As always, yogis, it is my honor and my privilege to serve you. May you all have a wonderful, blessed, and abundant day. Sat Nam and Namaste.